Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I can see lots of people just starting to join the session. So thank you so much for taking the time to join this call today. My name's Louise Kitt, and I am Director of Global Engagement for the Global Disability Innovation Hub. And I'm just going to do a little welcome and a little bit of housekeeping before we kick off the key topic for today. So this session is focused on parasport against stigma, and it's really looking at AT, stigma and storytelling, and can the political be commercial? So we've got a fantastic panel for you today, and we'll be exploring lots of different elements of some of our parasport against stigma program, which is part of the Global Disability Innovation Hub's AT2030 program, which is funded by UK International Development. And this program has reached 10 million people directly so far, and 54 million people indirectly. And it really focuses on testing what works to improve life-changing access to assistive technology for all. And I think, as many of you who are joining the call now might be aware or might work within the space or have some kind of familiarity within that, more than 2.5 billion of people need one or more forms of AT. So that could be things like wheelchairs or prosthetics, hearing aids or digital tools supporting cognition. Yet in low middle income countries, access can be exceptionally low, and you can see there almost as low as 3% in some areas, and that need really still continues to grow. So there's obviously a huge gap between the current provision and the current access to assistive technologies, and the need that is out there from a global perspective. So the AT2030 program really looks to test what works and trialing different mechanisms from all areas of supporting environments and ecosystems to help amplify not just the access to and the availability of assistive technology to people that need it, but actually the much wider cultural environment to enable that assistive technology not only to be maintained and supported and repaired and maximised within its use, but also to be functional within the environment. So areas of the programme look at things such as inclusive design and accessible infrastructure, but also looking at the wider piece around stigma and engagement and communities, and really that wider understanding of disability and inclusion. And so the parasport against stigma kind of sits within our wider AT2030 program, and I shall leave the team shortly just to talk in a little bit more detail around what exactly that looks like. Just before we kick off into the detail, just a few tiny bits of housekeeping. So there is closed captioning provided in the session today. So if you are seeing this either on your mobile or your tablet or your laptop device, and you want closed captioning but can't access it, normally on the toolbar, which is often located at the bottom, but maybe on the top, depending on how your screen's set up, there's a closed caption button, which usually looks like two C's in a rectangular box. And if you click on that, you should be able to activate the captions to work if you can't see them currently on your screen. If for any reason you're struggling with that or that functionality isn't working on the device you're using, in the chat box there is also a link which provides the full stream text link, so that's a lot longer narrative of the captions. So there's an alternative option there, and you may find that if you find the captions that are embedded within the Zoom platform a little bit challenging to read in terms of shorter lines, the stream text link provides a longer narrative format as well. So there's a couple of options there. So hopefully you found the closed caption button at the bottom or possibly the top of your screen. So I'll hand across to our fantastic colleague Jessica, who will take you from here and just go into a little bit more detail around the fantastic Parasport Against Stigma program that we're really proud to be part of AT2030, and has really developed over the last few years to have some really powerful impact and reflections and findings. So a really interesting area to find out a little bit more about. So I shall hand across to Jessica, who will be kicking start today's session.
Thank you very much, Louise. So yeah, my name's Dr. Jessica Noske-Turner, and I'm one of the team of researchers working on parasport against stigma. I'm at Loughborough University in London, and we also partner with the University of Malawi and with the Malawi National Paralympic Committee on this project. And we've been working on this project over several years, combining parasport and the potential and power of parasport to be changing narratives around disability, and with a focusing on stigma. So stigma was identified as a barrier to assistive technology access and uptake. And the idea behind the Parasport Against Stigma project, or PSAS, is that media coverage and other kinds of communication activities around Paralympics and parasport have been an important platform for challenging stigma in global north contexts, particularly in the UK, which has been seen as a leader in this space. And the idea was to see whether we could tap into some of that potential within wider contexts, particularly sub-Saharan Africa, and particularly through the PSAS project. We've had a huge amount of activity with our partners in Malawi. So I'm going to set the scene. So the question then for Parasport Against Stigma is, how can the Paralympics shift disability stigma in African contexts? We started with our first kind of action research experimentation around different approaches with Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games. Within that time, we've worked on national level games and regional level games within the southern region of sub-Saharan Africa, through to Paris 2024, and we are looking ahead now already to what can be done for LA in 2028. Today's discussion centres mostly around our reflections around different storytelling approaches that took place around the Paris 2024 Games. So before I introduce our fantastic panelists for today, I would like to just give a bit of a contextual or a bit of conceptual background to the discussion that we'll be raising in thought-provoking ways, I hope, today. And just to say that if you have any questions or comments, we'd love for you to post those in the chat, and we have a time for discussion towards the end of the session. So in this webinar, we plan to engage head-on with the tensions that can arise when we operate in what we've started to call the grey zone between social change and community-based advocacy practices around storytelling on the one hand, and on the other, more commercially driven storytelling spaces and interests. This collision is something that I've been exploring in my research over several years in communication and social change, which is my sort of field of interest. So I've been looking at how commercial and capitalist influences can reshape stories to simpler, more sensational packages, and can have this effect of dictating which voices end up being heard based on who's more marketable for the media. So it can be the case that the space for the messy and hard work of calling for social and political change can get squeezed out in favour of celebrity, optimistic, shareable stories. Now, we think that parasport presents a particularly interesting case for these kinds of dynamics because it speaks both to the very highly commercial world of sport, a world of sponsors and advertisers, celebrity, broadcast deals, and much more. And in parasport, becoming commercially attractive is seen by some as potentially unlocking the challenges with scale and financial sustainability, so that for once and for all, we can cast off the baggage of a charity mindset, which has been really problematic in many different ways for disability rights as a whole. On the other hand, parasport has deep roots in disability rights and inclusion and is seen as a platform for addressing complex issues like stigma and for calling for attention to demands for accessibility and AT rights. So in a nod to the radical feminist phrase from the 1960s, which is "the personal is political," our question in this webinar is, can the commercial be political? And to help us dig deeper, we're sharing 3 approaches to storytelling that have emerged in the Parasport Against Stigma project. So I'm first going to go to our experimentation with fictional storytelling around parasport through radio dramas. So I'm going to invite Innocent Katsach to turn on his camera and microphone. And video. Yeah. We're just having a last minute change to the order. Hopefully we can cover everything that we plan to, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see all of our guests right. So this is the first of 3 modes of storytelling that we'll talk about, and it is using fictional storytelling through radio dramas. So on our panel today to answer or to tell us a bit more, we have Innocent Katsach, who's a filmmaker, scriptwriter, TV producer, theatre director, and much more, working at Story Workshop Educational Trust. And we also have Gladys Chiwinja, who is a Malawian para-athlete. And we have another Gladys, who's from the Malawi Paralympic Committee, who's helping us with translation today. So welcome to all 3 of you.
Thank you.
In total, there were 6 episodes produced by Story Workshop for the Zimatachika radio drama series, which is a long-running and very popular edutainment radio drama series in Malawi. And these went to air just before the Paris 2024 Games. And the episodes followed the story of Limbika, who was a schoolgirl who we find out through the stories was abandoned at birth by her parents due to stigma surrounding her disability. So she was raised by her caring but overprotective grandmother. And Limbika becomes involved in parasport and the wider community with her friend Sinti. So Innocent, I'll come to you first. Could you tell us a bit more about the process of producing these episodes?
All right, thanks a lot. So from the beginning, we knew that it was not just about creating entertaining radio drama. It was about telling honest and lived stories that could change or could challenge stigma. So that shaped everything that we did. And to be specific, University of Loughborough and University of Malawi asked us to produce third generation edutainment, which seeks not just to deliver a message, just picking from the topic that we are discussing today. It seeks to spark debate around social issues like disability inclusion. So we knew that we are in for a whole different approach versus just selling a message or a behavior change message. But this time around, we wanted to spark more conversation. So the process started with us getting hold of the board of knowledge shared with us from the action research that has been mentioned here. And they were kind enough to give us footage from the TFD, Theatre for Development, discussions that were conducted during the research. So it allowed us to have this rich content in terms of what people are saying out there and to hear from different perspectives. So from there, we started shaping our storylines. We had a creative session, and by this time around, it was colleagues from University of Loughborough, colleagues from University of Malawi and Story Workshop. We are sitting actually in this very same room, and we plotted out the episodes. So then I think the decisions in terms of how should the stories come out and what sparks more curiosity and debate, they were shaped right then and right there. So following that, we conducted a workshop where we are reviewing the scripts because initially the process was, because it was coming from research like that, the action research, we thought maybe we could write the scripts and then we could just go on air and maybe have a pretest of the content after we have already recorded with the actors in the studio. But we started debating around the scripts. One of the key questions that was there, the debate was usage of, she was talking about marketing a message. So we said, as communicators, we tend not to repeat. For example, if we are fighting against a certain word that is being used to discriminate someone, we tend not to repeat that word in the messaging. But then the president from Malawi Paralympics said, no, mention it. If you mention it, it gives a whole different perspective to this debate. So that we did not reach a conclusion that day. So the decision was, okay, why not bring in athletes, para athletes, to a roundtable discussion where they can review the scripts and they can tell us about their lived experience. So that gave birth to that idea. And we went ahead to organize that session, and it was no holds barred kind of workshop. They were given all the chance to critique us. Coming from a creative like myself, you tend to defend your work. You tend to say, no, you can't, you cannot. If you're going to remove this, then we are distorting the plot. So, but then we said, no, let's listen to them because they do live the experience. And by the end of the day, what we're trying to do here is to create situations or stories that communicate what they go through. So I can say that every stage we reminded ourselves that authenticity was more important than convenience. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Really great to hear how open that validation workshop, the script validation workshop, I think we started to call it, was, and how important it was to the creative process, and always so difficult to think about, do we repeat derogatory words when we're trying to challenge them, or do we skirt around them? So really big challenges to think about there. Gladys, I'd like to come to you now. So you were one of the participants in that script validation workshop. So you were one of the people who was making sure that the dramas reflected the lived experience of disability and para-athletes. So what are some of the things that you remember from that workshop and some of the changes that you contributed to?
Okay, Gladys unali mmodzi mwa anthu amene anakumana kuona Muwawa Lodge kuwunikira za sewero la zimachitika limene likutenga mbali pa anthu aulumali. Ndi zinthu ziti zimene ukumbukira nanga unathandizira bwanji pa zinthu zimenezi?
Okay, ine Gladys ndi munthu mmodzi amene naino pa zokambirana zowunikira sewero limene limachedwa la zimachitika kuna Muwawa.
I, Gladys Chiwinja, I was an athlete. I was one of the participants who participated in the review of the zimachitika drama.
Zinthu zimene ndikukumbukira zimene zinakonza.
Things I remember as follows.
Panali mawu otchedwa wakhungu.
There was a Chichewa word said wakhungu, which means visual impairment.
Pamene ndinali pakonzedwe ndi pasi pamene ukhaza kuti wakhungu mawu amafunika aziyankhulira kuti munthu amene samaona bwinobwino.
We discussed to correct that word as a person with visual impairment.
Maybe just to help, the word that we used was wakhungu, meaning the blind one. So they corrected us to say, no, you don't say the blind one, you say someone who has visual impairment.
Tu panalinso mawu amene anatchulidwa amene tinakonza otchedwa opuwala.
There was another Chichewa word which says opuwala, which is paralyzed the legs, physical disability of the legs.
Zimene tinakonza kuti ayi pasa tchude mawu amene wakuti opuwala koma zili munthu ovutika mayendedwe, munthu amene miyendo yake ili yovuta.
And we collected such work as a person with physical disability who has problems in mobility.
Panalinso mawu ena okuza kuti munthu amene ali ndi khungu la albino oti sangathe kuthamanga pa yekha, loti samaona, akuyenera kuti azigwiridwa, akamathamanga mjakhale ndi gaida kuti azimugwira, ndenanso kuti tikonze pamenepo.
There was a misconception that a person with albinism can run with a guider, which was not true, but we discussed it to correct that way. That a person with a guider should be a person with a total blindness.
Kutikonze kuti uyu amene ali ndi khungu la albino suti ndi onse amene saona ayi, nthawi zonse ayi, pali ena amaona
and do their own like any other person. They cannot be assisted.
Basi zinthu zimene mafuna kukonza kwa pano pani zimenezo.
Just to add, as a person who was there during that review, there was also saying that there is an opportunity that a person with a disability should not be locked in the house, but should have an opportunity to participate in different activities like parasport, do any other things in development work like any other person. Maybe you can add.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what they can share for now.
Beautiful, thank you. Yeah, it's really bringing home the importance of making sure that those voices are actively included in the story construction. So thanks for those reflections. Gladys, one more question for you. So some people might say that using a platform like Zimitachika as a radio drama, as an outlet, could make audiences think about parasport as just about development, or just maybe associate it with charity, which is something we're trying to challenge. Because Zimitachika has been mostly funded by development agencies and is mostly used to communicate positive development messages. But for you, reflecting on the stories in the radio drama, what do you see as the value of using fictional dramas to address disability stigma?
Anthu ena manena kuti sewero la Zimachitika ndi sewero limene limakhala ngati likuonetsera zinthu zachitukuko kapena ntchito zachifundo ngati kwa anthu aulumali. Kodi msewero la Zimachitika likuthandizira bwanji kuthetsa tsankho la anthu aulumali limene amakumana nalo?
Okay, sewero la Zimachitika likuthandizira kuthetsa pali mawu amene amayankhulidwa ena ngati chichewa china chimatha kubisidwa osamayankhulira poyera.
Story workshop drama is able to eliminate the discrimination what people of disabilities experience.
Pali chichewa chimene anthu amatha kumuna chimabisidwa ngati mu zina zochitika mwefa chakubwera kwa Zimachitika inakhanga tinathandizana kutambasula chichewa kuti tizitha kuyankhulana bwinobwino kuti anthu azitha kuzindikira kuti waulumali anayenso ali ndi kuthekera. For example, chisanzo,
story workshop is able to address that people with disabilities have opportunity to do other things like
Limbika anaziyankhulidwa mawu achipongwe amene anayamba kulira munthu anamuyankhula mawu mawu amenewo amabisidwa ndena zoti ayi mawu amenewo akuyenera zoti azitchulidwa kuti anthu azitha kutsindikira kuti tikamutchula chindoti tapanga zinthu zolapika tikuyenera kuti tiziyankhula zinthu.
For example, in the story, Limbika was crying because of the abusive language which was said to him, like in Chichewa we say napweli. So this gave him pain that he was not supposed to be spoken like that. So he was crying as a human being. He felt pain.
Komanso pali uyu timati Gunji amene anali ndi vuto la miyendo, anali ndi vuto la miyendo imene anthu amamuyankhula zichwa zosiyanasiyana.
We had a certain character called Gonje, who was physical disability, was using wheelchair when walking, was paralyzed his leg, and people were also spoken abusive language to him, and he felt that had no opportunity to do other things.
Imene iye anankazona zoti ayi ineyo ndithatu kunyamula matumba amaonesera ndithu kuti zimene angathe kuchita iti kunyamula matumba kuti ayi nditha kunyamula matumba abwana ake amawauza anthu kuti akumulolera nji ameneyo kuti anyamule matumba koma zimachitika zija inakha ngati ikuonesera ndithu zimene Gonje uja angathe kutani kuchita background.
Gonje showed his potential by lifting a bag of manure. That means people with disabilities has potential to do other things like Gonje did. So this is what Gladys can say about the review of the meeting.
Thank you. And I remember also hearing about that scene with Gonje lifting the heavy bag and challenging a lot of people's preconceptions. So yeah, I heard that one was a really affecting scene for lots of people. Thanks very much, Sikomo, Gladys.
Yeah.
Innocent, could we come back to you to find out a bit more about what we know so far about the impact of these radio dramas? Do we know how many people listened to them or how they reacted?
All right. So generally, radio in Malawi is a big thing. Still a big thing. According to MACRA, which is Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, they say that 71% of our population do listen to radio programs, and which makes it the number one consumed and a trusted source of information in Malawi. So for these episodes were aired on national radio stations and community radio stations. It just aired on one national radio station, which is the Malawi Broadcasting Corporation Radio 1. And it reached out to 36% of the population. That's nationally. And we aired on TV radio. It's also a national radio station, but mostly it focuses on the youth. And a lot of people tune into TV radio just to listen to sports. There's they do Chichewa commentary of Premier League. So we took that advantage as well because it has that audience, sports-oriented audience. And we reached to at least 8.1% of the country's population through TV radio. And Mzad Radio is a community radio station. It's a southern region. We reached 3.3% through that. And within Zimba, community radio station covers the northern part of Malawi. We reached about 3.2% of the country's population. So we do have more of an engagement assessment of how is the radio going out to the stories that responded to, how are the audience engaged through this. So we do tag a telephone number or a WhatsApp line that they can give us feedback. Through that, we received 122 listener responses across platforms like the calls I've talked about, the social media messages, and 85% of that feedback was very, very positive. Listeners appreciated the way we are portraying people with disabilities. We are portraying them not as victims, but as active participants in what they were doing. So, learning from there, I thought where we miss at some point. I mean, following the process that we did with this particular project, is there is a thin line between archetype and stereotype, and lots of writers tend to fall into stereotyping simply because we want to appeal to as many people as possible. But with this one, we used more of archetypes, like the underdog, because more of an underdog kind of a hero. So we promoted that, but in the same way, we maintained or retained the authenticity of the story and the lived experience. Yeah, so that's what we can share for now.
Great reflections. Thank you all. Convire. Siamo convire. And okay, so let's move along, and we might come back to you. We have another guest we were hoping for, but I don't think we have him in the room yet. So we're going to move on to the next mode of storytelling, and this is the storytelling approach using digital video, short digital video. So we're going to discuss a short, very visually impactful video titled Beyond This Land, which was produced with the intention of being highly shareable on social media. And it was shared on social media in the lead up to the Paris 2024 Games. Some of you might have seen this video in one of our previous webinars. For those who haven't seen it, the video is a fast-paced video juxtaposing archival clips of high-performance African para-athletes with clips of quintessentially African scenes. And this is threaded together with a poetic narration. And I'm very pleased to say that here with us to discuss this is Ogero, who's known as Gufy. And Gufy is a poet and travel influencer from Kenya and the creative producer behind this video. Do we have Gufy? Are you able to put your camera and microphone on, or at least your microphone? There we go. Thank you. I think you're, can you say hello again? I'm not sure I heard you yet. You might be on mute. We heard you before. It was all working perfectly. Sorry, folks, I'll just give this one more moment. And if we don't, I'll come to the media stories. Unfortunately, we still can't hear you.
Hi, sorry, just to flag here. I can see that he is unmuted on Zoom, so it looks like it's probably an issue with the computer side of things. So I'm not sure if you're able to look at those settings. But yeah, it looks like from the Zoom perspective, it's working.
Okay, so Oscar, perhaps you could leave and come back again and see about those settings, because we did have them working earlier. And meanwhile, I'm going to invite back Innocent and Gladys. So if we could have your video back on again. Innocent Katsach and Gladys Chiwinja, could you turn on your video, please?
Hi. So I just talked to Willards. He
Oh,
says
yeah.
he's joining.
He's
He's joining now.
Okay, great. Well, let me get started. You can keep your video on just in case, and hopefully when he
Yes.
joins, you can see him. But let me give a bit
Okay.
of thank you very much for getting in touch.
All right.
So we also, another mode of storytelling, we skip back, was trying to get mainstream media coverage around the Paris 2024 Games. This is a much more traditional way of trying to get storytelling out into the public, out into the public sphere. So just some background on this. Before the Paris Paralympic Games, a group of stakeholders came together to come up with plans to maximize stories about Malawian para-athletes. And their efforts resulted in more than 40 stories across TV, radio, newspapers, and online. So a massive achievement. The stories were then analysed by a group of people in a workshop. And one of those people was Willards Muwawa, who's a Disability Program Officer at the Department for Disability and Elderly Affairs. And I believe that Willards is online. Willard, could you please turn on your microphone and camera?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
So I wonder if you could first briefly talk about the process of analysing those 40 stories.
All right. Let me greet the group first. Sorry that I've joined you very late.
That's okay. These things happen.
Thank you, thank you. About the analysis of the stories. First of all, let me tell the group that in Malawi here, we have a council that is mandated to look at the activities or programs that are made for persons with disabilities. And this council is known as the Malawi Council for Disability Affairs. In brief, it's called MACODA.
Mm-hmm.
So in view of this, MACODA is also mandated to look at media, how it is performing in terms of disability issues. So because of that, MACODA was asked to come up with stories. Stories that are made for sports, that's sporting stories, but that represent persons with disabilities. So MACODA came up with almost 40 or 45 stories. So the group reviewed or looked into all these stories to see how they are portraying or representing issues of disabilities. And upon the review, the stories were sorted in almost 4 categories. And these categories were one, that was about preparation of the sporting activity itself. And number 2 was about advocacy. Number 3, news, just the news about sport. We can say all the sporting activity or sporting actions. And number 4 was about motivation. Yeah, these are the categories that were selected or planned to have. And we looked into all these categories. Then the stories we applied a qualitative textual analysis of the stories using arts-based research method of collage.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Can I
Yeah.
jump in here and just ask you what the key insights were, and also what it told us about the challenges of ensuring that para-athletes' voices are heard in mainstream media?
Okay. The key insights were again divided into according to the categories. So I will cite about 2 or 3 of the categories. Number 1, starting with the hello, are you there?
Yes,
Hello.
we're here.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Number 1 was on advocacy. So the key insights on advocacy was that many articles intending to advocate sounded like are complaining. And number 2, the articles mostly make unfocused demands that had no direction. And number 3, it might be more effective to focus on key people to influence and be clear on demands and focus on global forums. And number 4, being advocacy must trust para-athlete voices, not relying on other people speaking for the athletes. Those are some of the insights that were seen.
Perfect.
And again, on the preparation, we also looked at during the preparatory period. It was a time whereby the athletes could be at least given morale, to get ready for the sport itself. Those were some of the insights that were shared during the preparatory, during the analysis.
Thank you very much. We might need to leave it there, but if people have questions, they can put it in the Q&A box. But thank you very much, Willards, for joining and for telling us about those findings from that workshop. Thank you. Yeah, which tells us a lot about the difficulty of engaging with media and that kind of media filter for more sensational stories, and for turning advocacy into a sense of complaining, and the difficulties getting the para-athlete voices centered there. So thanks very much for that overview. Okay, let me try again with Oscar Ogero.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. What a relief. That's wonderful to hear.
Finally.
Yes, wonderful. We don't have your video, but that's okay. We can move ahead without that. But so you were the creative brains behind the Beyond This Land video, which I think has been shared in the chat for people who hadn't seen it. And I gave a short sort of description of this, really engaging short video. Could you tell us a bit more about the process behind producing the video, please?
Okay, so I'll start with some introduction. My name is Gufy. I'm a performing poet and a filmmaker based in Kenya. I've been performing poetry and doing film production for the past decade. And one of the things that I've realized over time is visual stories are very powerful in translating what is going on in the world, in different spheres, different avenues and all. I was approached by Sheila. I think you know Sheila. And she told me that the lead up to the Paralympics was not being given enough coverage as compared to the Olympics, and it was true, because the Olympics, people talk about the Olympics years before the next one. Like right now, it's in LA, and even before it concluded, people are already eager and trying to say or talk about the coming Olympics. But when it came to the Paralympics, very few people know about it, very few people watch it. And I think they were coming from that point where they told me we need to create a narrative just to test the waters and see if this video can actually like shift the minds of people or bring awareness to the 2024 Paris Paralympics. And I was tasked to with coming up with a narration, and also was given a media bank from previous competitions around the world to come up with Beyond This Land. So the idea that I had was there are so many stereotypes or perceptions about Africa. It's wildlife, it's beautiful landscapes, but then beyond that, we really don't know much about Africa. And so many things happen in Africa. Good things, good stories, motivating stories. And the point was, you mix these two. We get a competition that is not necessarily talked about, and then you get aspects of Africa that are not out there or in good light. You merge the two, and that is what inspired Beyond This Land.
Thank you for that introduction. So when we look at the video that you've produced, it looks to me pretty clear that you've been influenced by a very commercial brand kind of aesthetic. I don't know if that was deliberate. What were you trying to achieve with going with that kind of high-end brand aesthetic?
I think what we were trying to do with it is we're trying as much as possible to match it with global standards of creating ads and pushing stories with the narration, the visuals, even the graphic effects. Because if the Olympics is being given this much coverage and this much resources, then the Paralympics also needs to be given the same kind of attention. So there's no need for us to say there are no budgets or there are no commitments. So we just needed to actually like put our best foot forward and give it that feel and look.
Great, thank you. And one last question before we open to the floor. One of the criticisms of trying to use social media for social change is that these platforms don't always necessarily help activist causes or complex issues. So they ask for social media content that is more simple, more simplified, and that avoids controversy. It often, the kind of content that gets liked and that gets circulated usually does a good job of making us feel good, but not much changes is one of the criticisms. So what do you see as the social change potential of this approach?
I think the thing with change or trying to amplify other stories is it's not a one-time thing. It's something that is supposed to be continuous. The why needs to be answered over and over and over again. So it might not seem like it's changing a lot, but the moment we keep on doing it, the moment we keep putting out these stories on literally any platform, could be a commercial TV, a radio ad, digital, if you're using influencers, if you're using famous people to put out the message, the idea is to do that consistently. And sometimes the thing with doing things consistently is, especially if it's not something that is widely welcomed. I've been watching the Olympics and Paralympics over a couple of years, and that disparity is big. But then without Beyond This Land, a conversation would not be started. And I was one of the influencers who used my platform to actually share and tell people about the ongoing Paralympic Games. And over that period of days where it was being covered, so many Kenyans actually tuned in to watch these games, because some of them thought like, okay, the Olympics is done. What is the next tournament? But I was like, no, it's not done. The Paralympics is starting. And these people need the same type of coverage, support, and just knowing that it's not easy being a para athlete, because over time, people think, okay, they're para-athletes. We need to have sympathy for them. We need to, in a way, tiptoe around their stories. But that's not the case. We actually need to amplify them more and treat them as professionals, because they really are professionals. They put their lives daily. They go to practice. They rehearse. They enter competitions, and it's a tough world for them. So for the whole world to just like switch their mindset after a main tournament has been done, it kind of is depressing. So to answer your question, these conversations need to start so that the change can be felt day by day. And for now, we've learned a lot about these things. And by the time LA gets here, we'd have a team that is dedicated towards pushing more narratives and stories around the Paralympics and the para-athletes.
Thank you very much. Really insightful, and congratulations on the video. And thanks for joining us today with those insights. So we had three different approaches to storytelling discussed. We had a radio drama, 6 episodes radio drama that fictionalizes the experience of engaging in parasport. We had use of media, use of mainstream media, and trying to get as many stories into mainstream media as possible across newspaper, TV, radio, and social media. And then we had this third short video produced with that high impact visual effect intended for sharing via social media, all really interesting in their own right, and all telling us something about the engagement with commercial actors, whether that's commercial mainstream media, with social media and influencers, and sort of a more, let's say, traditional approach, using traditional communication and social change approach, I should say, using radio dramas. We have a few comments and questions that I'd like to get to. First, I want to say welcome to Samson Ojuka, who is the silver medalist long jumper from the Paralympic Games in 2024. Fantastic to have you on the call with us, Samson. Samson says we need support in terms of videos, especially high quality highlights and marketability. Very hard without videos. And continues, if we're going to improve, we should start at the World Championships. We have the World Championship Games in India, so Paralympic sports should be hyped up from this early stage. So Samson, it's not, I'm going to take that as a comment, a very important comment, that this kind of hyped up video, high marketability, engaging on the front foot of that commercial space is what you're calling for here, and that you would like to see more of. So thanks very much for your reflections and contributions to the debate today. There was also a question from Cicely, which I'll come to. Cicely is joining us from Cambodia, and says thank you to all the presenters, which I would echo as well. And Willards, I think this might be a good question for you, since you're working in the government. So the question is, how can we encourage, how have we been able to encourage the government of Malawi to invest in advocacy for public awareness of people with disabilities to enter sports with appropriate assistive devices? Do you have any reflections on that question, Willards?
Lo, can you come again with the question?
Yeah, so how have we managed to engage with the government of Malawi to advocate for public awareness for people with disabilities around sports, and particularly assistive devices?
I see. There is a lot that is happening here in Malawi, especially from government part. We have different organizations, government and non-government organizations that are working in this part. But the most important thing is that we have, as I said before, we have a government arm known as Makoda that is regulating all the activities that are done in support of persons with disabilities. And again, we have another arm of government that is known as MAP, Malawi Against Physical Disabilities. This looks at the all the assistive devices that are required by persons with disabilities. So it's a collaborative work that is done within between the government and non-government organizations to make sure that persons with disabilities at least have assistive devices that can be used, or assistive technologies that can be used by them in sporting activities. I don't know if I missed part of your question. You can as well rephrase it. Yeah.
I think that's really good insight. And I can add that throughout the Parasport Against Stigma project, we've had multiple meetings, haven't we, Willards? We've visited the government offices a few times to talk about the project. And the Malawi Paralympic Committee has become much more connected with your department. And I think you're exactly right. It's through that collaboration and seeing where there are points to be able to work together and making those connections to other agencies like Makoda and MAP. And the Malawi Paralympic Committee has done an excellent job at holding events together and attending each other's events and supporting each other. So, great, thank you. I'm not seeing so many more questions that are directly relevant. There is one about trying to get AT included in the policies for international funding, which I think we can all agree with is really important for that to be mainstream throughout lots of funding efforts, and probably where this AT2030 project has been so impactful. But I'm not seeing many more questions for the panelists. Just in case, I'll leave it for one more moment in case someone's furiously typing as I speak. But maybe I can just turn to close, which is to say thank you very much to all of you for joining, and particularly to the panelists. We got there in the end. We had a few technical glitches, as always happens. So appreciate you all making that extra effort. So some closing reflections. I think what this experience has told us, is that it's really important to draw on a mix of storytelling, that each of these modes of storytelling has complemented each other. Some of them offer depth and emotional complexity, and long form ways to be able to delve really deeply into complex issues, to be able to really get a sense of that lived experience. And also, using radio, which is a major daily form of media for many people across Malawi, so reaching really significant audiences. But also, what it does to have constant presence in the media, in mainstream media, and that helps us to link up a lot of these partnerships and to be getting the attention of those decision makers. So using mainstream media is also important. We can't move ahead without having that heavy presence in the media, and that those efforts to get front and center of those discussions is also important. And then, the social media high visual impact video that Gufy was working on. I think everyone, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely click on that link to go and have a look at it. It's also, really important, and as Gufy has talked about, the impact of that being really important, and that's been backed up by Samson Ojuka, our Paralympian medalist who is joining us on the call today, reinforced the point about the importance of that high marketability and videos being really important. But in doing all of this, it's really important to insist on centering diverse para-athlete voices. So even when we venture into the commercial world, where stories may get simplified, may get kind of packaged up in a particular kind of way, we need to keep those para-athlete voices authentic and centered in those narratives. So if you'd like to keep engaging with us, I think that we've had a link put in the chat from Louise where you can find further publications. And as an outcome of today's webinar, we'll also be sending a blog post around for everyone who's attended. So do share that with your networks, with anyone who should have been here today and who missed it. And with that, I'd just like to say another huge thank you to the panelists and also to the organisers. And thank you to everyone for joining. And yeah, we're happy to continue the discussions if you see connections with your work. Thanks very much, everyone.